Well, I need to welcome you back, and indeed is the big story, and we're looking at the election, and also we're talking about the judicial judgment as it concerns elections and citizens' reaction to it. Yesterday, we noticed a negative reaction to the verdict being given by the Kano State Tribunal, looking at the go-by elections, and well, those reactions were really not necessary. Many will say it's indeed an ugly trend that we need to stop and stop on time. And because of that, the Kano State government have to indeed impose a dusk to dawn curfew as it concerns the violence that erupted after that very judgment. But looking at other states that are also waiting for such judgment, it's only right we look at what we need to do as a people to ensure that the nation do not go up in smoke on account of election cases being decided by the tribunals. But that's what we're looking at, and I still have both of my legal friends and also resource persons helping out with the discussion. I'm talking of no other person but Barrister Ejire Tagene, and joining us via phone, and also Barrister Godwin Ojigba right here in the studio with us to help us understand where the law stands as it concerns most of these verdicts. But anyway, that verdict is what we have now to take a message, and especially from our sponsors. We're talking about Benita Gas, who are proud partners of the big story on Quest today. Let's go get them.
Hey, Willikity, how person want to talk about gas matter? Make Beneta gas plant no sit down for im matter. Gas when we say it dey light and last well. Na Beneta gas plant na fill am o. Gas when dey full reach mark pekpekpe. Na Beneta gas plant na fill am, and for any type and size of gas cylinder plus all accessories, na Beneta gas plant na dey touch light am. Na every day na Beneta gas plant dey open o from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. On top refill matters, oh yeah, make you visit any Beneta gas plant branch. You fit enter inside of Soko off Jakpa Road, opposite UBA for PTI Road, Efru, Nehemiah Junction, near former Army checkpoint for Okwokoko, or 101 Ajami Moga Ekpe Road, Warri, or 145 Ugeli Patani Expressway by Aviation Junction when carry eye. They look Shikiman and NNPC roundabout for East Soko Road for Sergeant Quarters for Ugeli. For more information, make you call Beneta Gas Plant for 080-6745-7890. Beneta Gas Plant. Na God, they our back.
Well, I will always insist that the big story is big enough to accommodate all your businesses. So come over, let's talk, and let's see how you will also be on board right here on the big story. But anyway, that's what we're still having, a big discussion. We're talking about citizens' reaction to recent tribunal verdicts, and we're not just talking about that in Kano State, but also looking at that at the presidential election verdict. And well, we know that the party, I'm talking about the People's Democratic Party and that of the Labour, has both filed 86 ground as it concerns that very verdict. But anyway, let's continue with our discussion and go back to it. Barrister Ejire Tagene, hello, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay, now we'll come back to the courts and the cases and look at most of them later. But for now, I want us to look at the elections.
Yes.
As a pure reflection of most of these verdicts. Yes, we know some of the verdicts have been upheld, while some of them have been overturned on account of what was given to the court. But my question now, is this a pure reflection that the elections were marred with irregularities, that we're now having verdicts that seem to be upturning most of the elections before now? So is it a clear reflection that our elections were not really that free from irregularities? We're talking about the 2023 elections that was held in March and February.
Yeah, election cannot be 100% perfect. But what the law looks at is what we call substantial compliance. Okay. And again, even if election is not, even if election is irregular, it is left for you who is alleging that the election is irregular or that is flawed with corruption, overvoting, ballot stuffing, and all that, rigging and all that. It is left for you to prove your case as required by law. Standard of proof.
Okay,
so the standard of proof is there.
Yes.
So that is exactly what you should do. Okay. If you fail to do this, then your case will be dismissed. So basically, we are not saying that all the elections are perfect. No. But if you go, for example, I give you the Kano scenario again.
Yes.
It is possible, very much possible, that APC also committed some acts of, maybe rigging in some units.
Okay.
But if the lawyer on the other side, did not file a cross petition to say, okay, we admit or we do not admit that we did rigging. APC did rigging in unit this, that. Also deduct these votes.
Okay.
Do you understand, sir?
Yeah. Yes, I do.
Yes. Also deduct these votes from their votes. If they have done that and they were able to prove that indeed APC also rigged in their strongest hold, the tribunal would have, in their wisdom, deducted such votes.
Okay.
So the tribunal would deduct from both sides. We deduct from NNPP, we deduct from APC, and declare the winner with the remaining valid vote card.
Okay.
Because those votes are considered to be toxic. They are considered to be invalid votes, and so they are bound to be removed. Once you remove them, the remaining votes that were proved to be genuine becomes the determining factor of considering who the winner is. So, INEC will continue to strive. Our laws will continue to be stretching. Democracy is growing gradually. We are improving whether you like it or not.
Okay.
So what we should think of doing, in the next election is how to transmit the results from the unit to the collation center. Improve on this system. We are learning. Gradually, people will, especially at the National Assembly, will think of strengthening the laws. INEC will bring in more technology to ensure that we have a more free and fairer election.
Well, thank you, Barrister Ejiro, but I'll ask you, is this not putting too much pressure on the judiciary that when we do not have elections that are totally free and fair, and also that are rather mad in issues, would that not be putting undue pressure on the judiciary as it stands?
That is why I said INEC and the National Assembly has a duty. They have to sit down and put their house in order. The law should be strengthened. The law should give power to INEC, make it mandatory to transmit the results electronically.
Okay.
Once you have such laws strengthened, because sometimes INEC is handicapped. If INEC has a security report that the IREF were going to be hacked, because even we heard about hacking in America election, and they decide not to put it in on the IREF, you cannot blame them because no law compels them to do that.
Do so. Okay, well, so, yeah. By the time I'll plead with you to hold on.
Finally, sir, I agree with you.
Okay, go ahead.
I agree with you that there are so many cases, coming to the tribunal.
Yeah, that's my point.
So many.
That's my point.
Too frivolous. For example, why will somebody who, I don't want to, but why would
don't mention names of parties. We'll just
go to tribunal.
Yeah.
To do what? So, look at the case of Delta State, for example. The man who took third and fourth also went to the tribunal. They know that some of them, they know that there's no way they could have. So you just want to go to tribunal to do what? So even if you nullify the entire election, did you even meet the requirement to request it?
Well, anyway, it's a basic question to ask. But but I say, Godwin Ejigba, because the reason I ask this, if you remember, the European Union, after the elections, came out to say the elections were characterized with a whole lot of irregularities. But the previous government, and we're talking about the Buhari administration, came out to counter that and said, well, the elections were free, fair, and credible. But we now going to court, we now seeing most of these tribunals turning some of these election victories and annulling them, and also sometimes we call for rerun. That's the best you can get. Is this not a clear reflection that the 2022 elections were not really that free, fair, and credible at the end of it?
Well, the truth is that elections cannot be entirely be free and fair.
But an element of credibility should
there should be an element of credibility. That is where substantial compliance comes in.
Okay.
The only thing that has happened in this election, and what is bringing all of these litigations here and there, is the fact that INEC didn't comply with their own rules. If INEC had transmitted the result from the polling units down to the server, to the collation center, and all of it, the end result would almost have been the same thing.
But they are not mandated to do so by law, according to that judgment of the presidential...
but it's in their guidelines. They are not mandated, but they came out severally
Yes.
My learned friend, Okoye, First Church Okoye, came out grandstanding several times on the national television that they were going to do this, they were going to do that. And so some persons even traveled all the way from the UK to Nigeria to vote on the understanding that the votes will count. Incidentally, there were 2 elections that were held the same day, remember? Or even 3 elections. No. That of the National Assembly and that of the presidency. Yes. While the National Assembly went through, the presidency didn't go through. So if you had all gone through the server, you know, the number of cases that you now have will not have been the same thing. Recall that only yesterday here, the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Ariwola, was complaining that, in fact, most of the courts now are not sitting. Cases that ought to be heard are not being heard because some of the judges that ought to hear these cases are in tribunal, hearing that matter. So INEC must do something, set the rules straight, but they will find it difficult now to galvanize the people to vote. In 2017, you will see real apathy because the people were properly mobilized on the understanding this time that the votes will count. But this time now, I'm not too sure. I will agree with my learned friends that the votes counted. If they counted, were to a very little extent. People just did what they did. The results with the 20 unit and the collation center in most cases are different. So because of the number of the quantum of person you need to call to give to bear witness for you, oftentimes the time allowed, the 180 days is not enough to do all of this out of this one. And so because of that one, oftentimes you're unable to prove your case. So this case is a clear reflection that the elections were flawed in most of the places.
No, I still want to be with you, Barrister Ojigba. Are we not going through the same road that we're now having courts to decide who governs rather than having the people do that? Is that not the same road we're going through? Because we saw what happened in Imo State. Everybody came out to say, well, no, it should not be. Is it not taking away that very decision of who governs the people by the people that the court is doing now?
The truth of the matter is that you are very, very correct. The real thing is that sovereignty belongs to the people.
Of course.
It's the people who ought to decide who becomes their governor and not the court. In fact, a past president of this country, Jonathan Goodluck, also alluded to that fact, that if there are issues, the court should not also decide. Let them go back to the field again and let the people decide who becomes their governor or who becomes their president. But what you find is that the law as it is today requires that the court must take the decision one way or the other. And until that law is amended, then it continues to be the same. But as an individual, I think that the buck will stop at INEC's table. INEC must understand that, look, we should conduct an election that shows a reflection of the people's will. What do the people want? And once you do that one, the cases that you find in court and people file every other day will not be there. But until such a time that you do that, the case will continue to be filed. And courts will continue to decide who becomes governor or who becomes this or who becomes that.
Well, anyway, I still want to quickly remain with you before we quickly go on a break. Now, the reason we're having this discussion, we're looking at citizens' reaction as it concerns most of these verdicts. And honestly, it has not been an easy one for most Nigerians. Even before the election, if we take our mind back even before, during and after the election, we saw high rate of bullying, either on the social media, which is a pure reflection of what seems to be on ground, and everybody seems to be on a different side of the divide. But with the rate things are going now, are we not also going to see similar trend as we witnessed during the elections? When we had almost 107 persons killed, we had 57 persons adopted on account of the last 2023 elections. So is this not almost a build-up to that kind of a feeling that we're now having unnecessary heat-up, not just only in the social media, but a pure reflection of what is happening on ground and a total understanding of what played out in Kano yesterday?
My understanding clearly is that this thing is driven clearly because of illiteracy. Illiteracy on the ground that you must understand that the gladiators, persons who naturally will benefit first, the first families, their children are not there on the street. They are not out there on the street. And so I do not see why if I were a younger person, should be there on the street. This person must be made to understand that you don't have a greater stake, which is higher than that of the governor's children or the president's wife. So we must begin to tell ourselves the home truth. The home truth is that allow the court to take the decision gradually. Whatever it is, let it be. Because at the end of the day, whoever governs is going to provide road, health, agriculture minister to our needs. Whether it is APC or PDP, the trajectory is going to be the same thing. It's going to be provisions of social services to the people. Yeah. So you don't need to kill yourself because this person is in power. Power is transient. One person comes and before you know it, the person is gone and that person comes in. So if for any reason it didn't go your way now, go back to the Court of Appeal. It didn't go your way, get to the Supreme Court. If for any reason you are unlucky at that level, go back to the drawing board and begin to campaign again. And then INEC, as I said again, the buck must stop at their table. Let them conduct an election that is free, fair, and credible by ensuring that if they set the rules, let them play by their own rules.
And we will not be seeing all of these objects.
You will not be seeing all of them at all.
Well, anyway, what we need to do now again is go on a break, and when we come back, more discussion centered on the big story for today. We're talking about citizens' reaction as it concerns most of these tribunal verdicts and what it should be. Countless overturn of elections already seems to be happening across the country, and that seems to be putting a whole lot of tension as it stands, and a spill out of such tension was what was experienced yesterday and presently is ongoing in Kano State, where there is a dusk-to-dawn curfew and definitely a sad reality of how it has been. But let's go on the break. I'll come back and talk some more.